I would smoke weed and not get high. I would just be worse off than I was before. Or I would drink and I wouldn't get drunk. Or I would have sex with random women and I wouldn't feel any joy. There was none of the things I was doing to fill that human instinct were being fulfilled. Yeah, these are the big money movies. These are the international movies that may have come here, but these movies don't mean anything. They have no intrinsic value. They have no spirit. They don't mean anything. Entertainment. All these movies, I have big shame about these movies. They don't mean anything. I don't want to act no more. I'm not interested in making movies, really. I think my God is very intelligent. My God used my weaknesses to bring me closer to Him. And I felt like I was living a life that was meaningless. And so I drank a lot and smoked a lot of weed. Very lascivious with women and was trying to like fill a hole, just constantly chasing instincts, just like an animal.
Who is Jesus Christ for you?
Lord, the Redeemer, Savior, like a best friend.
Hollywood is full of secrets, but some of its biggest stars are hiding something far more unexpected than scandals or fame. Behind the cameras, behind the roles, behind the headlines, these icons often live double lives, not scandals, not conspiracies, something even more unbelievable. In this video, we reveal some Hollywood stars who were living a life they weren't proud to call their own and how they got healed. Stay with us. Number 1. Chris Pratt.
Good morning, everybody. I woke up, I went to bed last night really kind of upset and depressed, and I woke up feeling crappy. And I didn't want to work out. I didn't want to. I knew, though, that if I put on my Christian music playlist and I got out in the woods and ran, that I'd feel better, but I just didn't want to. And I did it anyways, and gosh, was I right. It felt amazing. I got out in the woods, got my blood pumping, and God is like, who sat down there right next to me? I say this as a guy who, I don't get emotional that often, but I actually got emotional out in the woods. I was out in the woods on this run, and I just felt like there was another in the fire standing next to me. And that was the song, actually. I don't know, I think that's the lyric in the song. I don't know the name of the song. It's a really good one. But that moment, it really captured me. And so I just want to say all glory to God. And if you feel down today, maybe get an exercise and maybe listen to some good worship music or get the word in, because it really helped me this morning.
In moments like this, you can almost see why Chris Pratt's words resonate so deeply with people. Behind the blockbuster roles and the Hollywood spotlight, many are wrestling with the same emotional weight, doubt, and heaviness that ordinary people feel every day. Yet what sets Chris apart is the way he opens a window into his personal battles, not to present himself as perfect, but to show that even in his lowest mornings, he reaches for something higher. And as his career grows louder, his message grows clearer. He believes his voice, now more than ever, has a purpose far beyond acting.
It is the time that it is, and I don't know that I'm so much more motivated by necessarily where the world is, or if it's just what I'm feeling called to do right now. I think it's a combination of both things, and you know, it feels like an important time for that, and it is an authentic thing for me, and I you know, that kind of a message, it might not be for everybody, but there is a group of people for whom that message is designed, and it makes me, nothing fills my soul more than to think that maybe some kid watching that would say, hey, I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about praying. Let me try that out, you know? That's like the only way I feel like I can repay what has essentially been a giant gift in my life.
Chris's journey shows that his faith isn't a performance. It's personal. And as the conversation continues, you begin to see why his message stirs reactions, support, and sometimes criticism in the Hollywood industry.
I admire you so much for being open about your faith.
Oh, thank you.
Do you feel like, I feel like you sometimes get shit for that. Do you feel like that's a hard thing?
Oh yeah, I sure do, but that's nothing new. That's nothing new, you know? If I was of this world, they would love me just like that. But as it is, I'm chosen out of this world. That's John 15, 18 through 20. It's the way it is. It ain't nothing new. 2,000 years ago, they hated him too.
But despite the pressure, Chris remains steady. He understands what his convictions invite, yet he refuses to hide them. That authenticity opens the door to a deeper discussion about how Hollywood actually responds to people of faith.
From my understanding, the way I've seen it really, and I've worked in Hollywood now for a few years, and for the most part, you know, it gets, some people will accuse, I think, Hollywood of being very far left and being very progressive and thus, like, resistant to any type of religious ideas. But it seems they're kind of open to anything, including religious ideas. You know what I mean? So, like, I've never had anyone in Hollywood say, hey, stop saying that. And I think that there's this narrative that exists out there that Hollywood is anti-Christian or anti-religious, but it's just not the case. They're kind of not anti-anything. You know, they're kind of pro whatever's authentic to you. And I like that, because for me, it's authentic for me to be pro-Christian, pro-Jesus. That's my thing. You know, I like it. And I've never had anyone try to shame me to my face. Maybe they go say it behind my back, but if that's the case, go ahead. You say whatever you want about me, to my face or behind my back.
I would not be here with the ease and grace I have in my heart without my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Even when he's accepting awards in a room full of people and paparazzi ready to pounce on his every word, Chris Pratt humbly gives all the glory to God.
I want to thank God. I always do that when I'm up on a big platform in front of a bunch of young faces. I say, I love God. That's my thing. I love him. And you should too.
And with that clarity, Chris continues speaking boldly, shifting from public perception to the personal values that shape his career and life.
Chris, I'm one of the many people who follow you on social media, from erecting a cross to recently tweeting for prayer for a young fan. You're very open about your faith. What themes of faith do you think play out in this film, this Western?
That's a really good question. Thank you. I mean, there are, you know, themes of redemption, I think, and forgiveness. Those are major themes in the faith, my faith, and in this movie as well. I think, you know, these are people who have done bad things, but are seeking righteousness, or seeking an opportunity to make amends.
It's in moments like this that Chris reveals what truly anchors him, not fame, but redemption, forgiveness, and the pursuit of integrity. Themes that echo throughout both his work and his worldview.
What do people misunderstand about you?
That's a good one. I think, I don't know. Maybe they, that's a good one. It's a good question. I think I would say sometimes people assume because I'm a person of faith that I'm exclusive and I don't love everybody. I think that's a misinterpretation. Anybody who really knows me knows that that's not true. But yeah, I got so much love for everybody, no matter who you are, what your deal is. I love you, and maybe people don't understand.
Number 2, Shia LaBeouf.
I would smoke weed and not get high. I would just be worse off than I was before. Or I would drink and I wouldn't get drunk. Or I would have sex with random women and I wouldn't feel any joy. There was none of the things I was doing to fill that human instinct were being fulfilled.
Indiana Jones, the trilogy of Transformers, Disturbia, and Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
These are just a few among the important films you took part in.
Yeah, these are the big money movies. These are the international movies that may have come here. But these movies don't mean anything. They have no intrinsic value. They have no spirit. They don't mean anything. Entertainment. All these movies, I have big shame about these movies. They don't mean anything. I don't want to act no more. I'm not interested in making movies, really. I think my God is very intelligent. My God used my weaknesses to bring me closer to Him. And I felt like I was living a life that was meaningless. And so I drank a lot and smoked a lot of weed. Very lascivious with women, and was trying to like fill a hole, just constantly chasing instincts, just like an animal, and thought I was in control of things. And I was in an industry that would applaud that. And so I would come to set and I would freak out in front of a camera, ooh, and people would clap, and then I'd go home and I'd be a crazy person. And I hurt people, was a big sinner in my life, and grew up believing that that was the way. And then all of the things that I used to use to fill my that emptiness up stopped working. and then I didn't want to be alive anymore. So in the States, we have something called Zoom. I don't know if you have it. And I had a producer. I had gotten arrested in Georgia for fighting with a policeman.
The producer was arrested?
No, I was arrested making a movie in Georgia for fighting with a policeman. And on that movie was a producer who was in a spiritual program that helps people who have a problem with alcohol. And he told me to go on this meeting. So I go on this meeting and I see 50 men smiling and laughing. And that's my first sign of God, is laughter. And so I listen, because I don't have any laughter in my life. And I see they're laughing with each other, and they have friendships, and they have camaraderie, and they have this fraternity. And I feel like, ooh, this is like a family. I had been making these movies all this time to build a family, making money to get a family, but my family was disaster, and I'm seeing a family, and I had tried to do this before, but this time I had none of the tools that used to bring me joy or fill that hole up worked anymore. And one of these men in the meeting, he says, we all share, everybody shares in the meeting. And one of the men in the meeting says, you don't have everything you want, but you have everything you need right now. And he says, if you have God in your life, you're playing with loaded dice. God cheats in your favor. I'm going to this meeting a couple days, and finally my spiritual guidance, my friend, my partner online, says, come meet me at the beach. And I have no God in my life, because my idea of God is just fear. And this man is talking from a fearless place, so I believe him. And he points at the ocean, at the waves, and he says, I know you don't believe in God, that's okay. So why don't you just try to stop the waves? I said, what do you think, I'm stupid? Like, okay, yeah, I know I can't stop the waves. I'm not an idiot. Okay. He says, I know. Oh, wait. He says, I know you can't, I know you don't believe in God, that's okay, but your life is terrible. Your life sucks. The way you've been leading it is a disaster. Your life is a disaster. And I know he's right, and so I'm willing, because I'm in pain. And I say, stop waves, and the waves don't stop. And he says, no, put your back into it, really try. And I say, stop waves, and they don't stop. And he says, I just want you to pray to the waves until God shows up. And so I do. And then a month later, maybe a little bit longer than that, maybe a month and a half later, I'm on my meeting, and Abel Ferreira asks me if I know about Padre Pio.
So from that moment, there was a new research of God? And
No.
faith started?
No, because I'm still a narcissist. Just looking at Padre Pio like, oh, this is another opportunity to make a movie.
Who is Jesus Christ for you?
Lord, the Redeemer, Savior, like a best friend.
Shia LaBeouf's story begins on the opposite end of the spectrum, raw, chaotic, and filled with internal conflict. Where Chris found his grounding early, Shia spiraled into emptiness despite fame, money, and global recognition. His honesty lays bare a man searching for meaning while drowning in habits that no longer satisfy him. And it's in this painful unraveling that Shia begins to realize something profound. Nothing he chased could fill the void that was consuming him from the inside out.
How would you describe yourself now, the new Shia LaBeouf?
I'm very loved by God. I know that, and I want to love God better, and so I'm trying to live a more righteous life. There's things I need to change, and I'm working on it. And I feel like now my life has purpose. I used to manipulate a lot, and I used to lie a lot, and I don't want to do that, and so I get scared sometimes to be emotional. The things that kept me from the faith would be things that my logic couldn't reason around. Jonah in the whale. Stories like that are a different genre of the Bible, I would use to pick apart the whole Bible. I would discount the beauty of the forest because of the ugliness of some of its trees. And then pain makes you willing to stop arguing because joy feels good. And so through Pio, I'm able to look at the Gospels from a different perspective, less as an antagonist who's trying to pick the thing apart, and more of a believer. And now that I have felt, faith comes when you know. Faith and belief are different words. Belief is when you're willing to know. Faith is when you really know. I have no right to laugh and smile and joke like I do. My life on paper doesn't make sense that I laugh like I do. That's only because of God. When I go to church, I feel lighter. My wife is open to being baptized. My child will be baptized. I'd like to come here and have my child baptized here. I have relationships with religious men now that I didn't have before.
Shia's turning point didn't come in a dramatic Hollywood moment. It came in the silence of hitting rock bottom. With no direction, no family, and no identity left to hold on to, he was finally forced to confront himself. And in that emptiness, a small opening appeared, one that allowed something entirely unexpected to reach him.
I was at a stage of my program personally where I was desperately seeking a higher power. I was looking for something I could hold on to, something I could really hang my hat on. And this call from Abel came at this. It converged at the same time that I really wasn't interested in acting. So I'd given up on trying to be an actor. I was really going to go get a job at Home Depot and trim bonsai trees. I was straight out of rehab. I was sort of aimlessly driving around the country, living in my truck because I didn't want to go home because my house was empty. My wife wasn't with me. I had no family. My family wouldn't talk to me. I had no friends. My friends had abandoned me. I was full of shame and spiraling into a very dark place when the call came in. So because of the amount of pain I was involved in, and suffering that was going on in my life, aimless suffering, mind you, didn't really know what the point of the suffering was. I was living in deep resentment and regret and shame. And then this came to my doorstep, and it felt like, even before I knew about Christ and how he works or Pio or any of this, it felt like something from on high. It felt like celestial mathematics or something I really couldn't actually, the coincidence of it all felt almost supernatural.
As Shia's questions grew deeper, so did his curiosity. What began as skepticism slowly evolved into a search for answers that felt too real to ignore, pulling him further into a world he never imagined entering.
Hanging out with all of these men, talking about the gospel, asking them ridiculous, stupid questions. I mean, very secular questions, Do you guys smoke weed? Why don't you masturbate? Things that are questions that under normal circumstances you couldn't ask a priest. But these were questions I was asking of my friends, which allowed me to get even more into the marrow of the bone, ask even more severe questions that were kind of socially uncouth, questions that I needed answered for myself. Do you ever have bouts where you feel like you're talking to yourself in your prayer? Do you ever hear the voice of God? What does that sound like? Do you have audible hallucinations? Do you feel schizophrenic as opposed to a religious person? Questions that a secular person would ask of a friar in a way where it almost felt like I was asking family at that point. That was my faith journey, and really my way into playing Pio was falling in love with Christ in a very real way. For a flawed man like me to fall all the way in love with Christ, it's almost a statistic. I almost have become like what I always railed against. It's almost cheesy how real it's become for me. And if I wasn't me and I was on the outside looking in, of course he had a come to Jesus moment. Of course, I get the rolling of the eyes from the nons or the non-believers or the atheistics. I understand because I was that. But it's what happened. And to deny it is not real. I mean, this saved my life. This isn't just a film for me. This was an opportunity to fall in and have an all-access pass to the gospel and the church and Christ in a way that I've never, though it was available, I had never had the instinct or the compunction to do so.
Do you think I've noticed that just when you find God, you feel like you know yourself better. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like you know yourself better now that you?
Yeah, I had no idea who I was previous. I mean, I was just living for more achievement, more goals, more animal instinct, pleasure seeking, selfish, self-centered, dishonest, completely inconsiderate of other people. If I was a nice guy, it was for an end. I had no charity in my life. There was no, I was a tolerant man. These things aren't Christian. Tolerance is a strictly Jewish thing. Full-blown acceptance is a Christian thing. And when you really ride with that, life is a joy. It's a pleasure. Even the tough stuff feels like a gift. It's like a hack. It's like a complete suffering hack. So once you've gotten the hack, once you feel fully embraced by God, there is no suffering. I mean, even the suffering feels like a gift. That's not in a masochistic sense, but in a purposeful sense. So I was blessed in the way that I entered the faith, and the way I was seduced into my love affair with Christ. It was a full-blown seduction, front to back, and I'm still in it. I guess my message to a non-believer would be, I wish you profound extended pain, the kind of pain that destroys all your plans, that allows you to open up to an incredible life full of joy and harmony and happiness and purpose and connection, unlike anything I've ever experienced before. That your suffering is meaningful. It's actually a gift. That this kind of pain draws you away from worldly clamors and brings you closer to God. And if you can really heed that message, there's an incredible life on the other side, full of unbelievable joy and connection and purpose, the likes of which I never found in the Hollywood system or in the success, animal-driven, animal instinct, pleasure-driven life. It's a bit like forgiveness. You don't feel forgiveness and then forgive a person. You forgive a person and feel the forgiveness. Suffering's a bit like that. It's, when you're in it and you have a really micro view of what's going on, there's no way you can enjoy it. But when you zoom out a little bit and recognize that you've been chosen, that you've been picked, that God's basically saying, come here, I love you. Once you can really get down with that idea and fully adapt to that idea, it really removes suffering, which really is, I think, the point of Christianity. The point of Christianity is to be loved and to trust a power greater than you that can handle all of your problems. The message of the movie is that God loves you and he's cheating in your favor.
That search eventually led him to a revelation he couldn't escape. Suffering, rather than destroying him, was reshaping him. For the first time, he saw purpose in his pain. He realized pain wasn't a curse, but a blessing, something Hollywood had never given him.
Everyone is going to experience suffering. That's what separates me from this machine, is this machine will never suffer. What makes me human is my suffering. And when I look at Christ on the cross, I think, is that a joyful man? As he bleeds out and dies on a cross for humanity, is that man joyful? And I think the answer is yes, that even in his suffering, that's what Christ represents for me, meaningful suffering. The story of Christ is that God became man for our betterment. So that means that he is the ultimate example, the supreme priest, the ultimate redeemer. If I look at Christ on the cross, I think that's very instructive. You don't see a lot of smiley face Christs on the cross. You don't see Christ on the cross dying and laughing with aplomb, in joy, in ultimate joy. But I think they should make some Christs on the cross in ultimate serenity, in ultimate joy. They always make Christ like this sad face, and that seems stupid. It seems like it's not deep enough. Like the artists who manufacture those crucifixes, it's almost like they're not seeing the full story. And the full story, I believe, is that Christ is in maximum joy in that moment. He is fully in his purpose.
And as he continued reading and reflecting, Shia discovered a version of faith that challenged him, confronted him, and ultimately transformed him.
The closer you get to living the life of Christ, the more people will feel that in you, and the more the easier your life will be, the more peace and serenity you'll have. My wires were crossed. I thought playing God would make me feel peaceful, but you're always going to fail. You're always going to. I come from a lot of shame. Before this, I was very shameful, guilty guy. And so I'd never read the gospel, and he's reading Matthew to me.
So you'd never read like the
Nothing.
Gospel of Matthew straight
Nothing.
through? Yeah, okay.
I've read all Sam Harris. I've watched all the TED Talks.
Yeah, right.
And was really good at attacking Catholicism because it made me feel superior. It
So
made
you
me
were
feel
kind of agnostic/atheist at the time.
Yes, I'd like to argue because
Right.
it made me feel like I was in power.
Right. Yeah.
I'd like to be contrarian.
Yeah.
I like to sit with a bishop and then put you on your heels because that would make me feel powerful.
Right.
Which I find most secular people enjoy, the control of it.
Yeah.
Because so much of life is uncontrollable, to feel in control feels good. So I was that guy. I come up with these arguments. I've been bar mitzvahed phonetically. I read the Hebrew phonetically.
Okay.
So it felt like a show.
Yeah.
It felt like a hustle.
You didn't know what you were saying.
I didn't know what I was
Yeah.
saying.
Okay.
And in that way, it felt, and it wasn't emotional. It felt like I was doing it for my grandmother, who at that time was on her last leg, and I was told I needed to get bar mitzvah for my grandmother.
And you were like 13 at the time. At the
13,
usual age, yeah.
and I read it phonetically, and my grandmother's happy, and they put me on a chair, and that's my spirituality
Yeah,
for a long
okay.
time. And it felt fake because I never invested. There was never any. I had never felt any real suffering in my life, so I didn't have any willingness to have any belief. So I had no faith. Okay, so that's the.
So now you're up at San Lorenzo, and you're given the Gospel of Matthew.
I'm reading
You're reading it
Matthew
for the first time.
I read it for the first time, and things start to strike me, like
what?
like John the Baptist.
Yeah. Okay.
Like the story of John the Baptist, being a reformed hedonist, being this man who was wearing like this who was sort of like, scraggly and like he kind of felt like a old Western character from some kind of like I don't know, like he felt like he felt like a cowboy.
Eating locust and wearing
He felt like kind of rustic and strong and masculine. And my opinion of Christ at this point felt almost like I was reading about a Buddhist, like this very soft, fragile, all loving, all listening, but no ferocity, no romance.
Well, then you hadn't read the Gospel.
Hadn't read the Gospel
at that point.
I just had this art that I had seen of like this very soft,
more feminized. Jesus.
Yes. And so I hadn't had this idea of like the Old Testament Christ on a horse, cape dipped in blood, sword. I had none of that was in my lexicon of knowledge. So all I knew about was this very soft, meek Jesus, which didn't fit into my idea of what masculinity would be. I come from my dad was a Mongol biker, it's like it wasn't appealing to me. And then I read about John the Baptist and it became quite appealing. The grizzle.
Yeah, right.
And then you get further into the gospel and you start getting into like elements of this like redemptive. It felt like I started reading about a route. I started like reading a map, towards something that felt like let go. That's really what I got out of the Gospels. If I could wrap it up in 2 words, it was let go. And at that time when I was reading it, I was holding on so tight to a life that I was slipping away through my hands, to 35 years of management, that the gospel gave me this invite to just let go. What never was appealing to me about Buddhism was this idea, like, if I'm in a boat and the boat is sinking and I don't know how to swim, Buddhism is a book that tells you, and read this and learn how to swim better. And at the time in my life, like, I didn't want to swim anymore. I had a gun on the table. I was out of here. I didn't want to be alive anymore when all of this happened, okay? Shame like I had never experienced before. Kind of shame, you forget how to breathe. You don't know where to go. You can't go outside to get like a taco. Like you don't want to go anywhere.
And that's where you are when you're up there reading the gospel and thinking about the plain tide repeal. You're in that state.
Yes, but I'm also in this deep desire to like hold on.
Yeah.
And so I read the gospel with this man, Jude, and I keep hearing like in many different variations of it. I'm not going to explain the whole gospel here, nor do I need to. It's you. But I keep hearing let go. Mm-hmm. And to a person who's been gripping so tight for so long, it feels like, it just feels like it's just it just feels like the right move to let go, like complete surrender for real. And it stops being this like prep of a movie, and it starts being something that feels beyond all that. And I stopped sending videos. Like at a certain point with Jude, I just like really fall in. And I started falling into this group, and I'm living there. So I'm taking showers in there, and I'm eating with them, and we're hanging out. And
they're drawing you into the Christian, the Catholic thing. They're kind of drawing you into the gospel, into a certain way of life.
But more than that, it's not even like they're drawing me into like laughter. They're like sharing jokes with me. It's like we're just like hanging out. And at this time, I had no friends in my life.
What did Jesus do with people when he first met them, typically? He'd eat and drink with them. So you think of Jesus, well, he's giving the Sermon on the Mount. Well, yes, he does. But the typical move of Jesus was, well, let's get around the table and we'll talk.
Yeah.
And he's talking to prostitutes and sinners and tax collectors, and so that move of theirs, to kind of draw you in.
Yeah.
Draw you into their life.
Yeah, and I'm eating their ice cream, and I'm eating them out of house and home, and I'm filling the tacos back up. But like I'm really like they're not asking nothing of me. They're not asking me to sign nothing. They're not asking me to do nothing or take pictures. I'm just like sitting around, and I'm petting their cats, and I'm hanging out,
Yeah, right. But the lesson of, as you put it, let go, was coming through.
Yeah, that's all I kept hearing.
But not just let go, but reach out, right, to someone who's reaching out to you.
The reach out had happened for me.
Yeah.
I was already there. I had nowhere to go. This was the last stop on the train. There was nowhere else to go. In every sense, it was like, I know now, like my God was using my ego to draw me to him, was drawing me away from worldly desires. It was all happening simultaneously, but there would have been no impetus for me to get in the car and drive up here if I didn't think, oh, I'm gonna save my career. And what happened to me when I got here is a switch happened. It was like 3-card Monty. It was like somebody tricked me into it.
Yeah.
It felt like. Not in a bad way, in a way that like I couldn't see it. I was so close to it. I couldn't see it. I see it differently now because time has passed. And anyway, so I'm hanging with Brother Jude, and then Brother Jude gets called away, and he has to go like be an archivist somewhere. So he's got no time for me. And another man enters the fray named Brother Alex, and Brother Alex has a totally different energy.
Young guy, he's about your age.
He's my age.
Yeah.
Super austere.
Yeah.
Very prayerful.
Yeah.
And I don't know nothing about prayer because I can't cultivate an unforgiving. I don't know anything about silence. I don't know anything about quiet. I don't know anything about it. I got a cell phone in my phone that will give me everything my ego needs. It's buzzing all the time. I got all this, there is no silence, or I don't know anything about meditation. Meditation at this point in my life feels like a self-imposed timeout. Prayer feels like I'm memorizing somebody else's words, like I'm an actor, like I'm doing monologues for myself in my head. And Alex says, just go into that chapel and just shut up.
Where the Blessed Sacrament is.
Yes,
Yeah.
and just sit there. Just sit there and be quiet. And that feels like a very strange thing to tell me, and I'm also rebelling. And right around this time, you and the deacons show up for like this deacons meeting.
Well, that's the first time I met you.
It's the first time I meet you.
Okay.
The deacons are all hanging out at the church.
Right.
And I feel like, oh, this is like, wow, it's amazing. I get to sit in here, and I feel like I'm not allowed to be there. But then all the deacons are like being really warm with me, and I'm sitting in the back.
It was Mass first, right?
It's Mass.
Then,
We do Mass, and then we go like have a little sandwich.
Right.
And you do this talk about prayer.
Yeah.
And how it's really a simple 4-step process, prayer, and I needed somebody to simplify it for me, because it felt like, one, I needed it to be defined. I didn't want it to be this esoteric. I needed something very defined and very practical. I needed something very like boots on the ground. And you said, quiet leads to loving thoughts leads to loving action leads to peace. And that hit me heavy.
It was
and
Mother Teresa I was quoting there. That's
whoever it was, it's changed my life.
Number 3, Bob Dylan.
The press, the media, that's not the judge. God's the judge. The only person you have to think about lying twice to is either yourself or to God.
Bob Dylan's story, though quieter, carries its own mystery. Long before the music legends praised him and the world called him a prophet, Dylan was already wrestling with an identity crisis, seeking a name, a voice, and a purpose that felt truly his. His reflections reveal a man who understands the weight of reinvention, not for fame, but for survival. And like the others, his journey hints that even icons search for something deeper than applause.
Let's talk about your name. For a while in Minnesota, you went by the stage name Elston Gunn. Where'd that come from?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it could have come off maybe a couple of cemetery tombstones. Maybe the phone book.
And then you had Robert Allen, A-L-L-E-N, and you changed it to A-L-L-Y-N. You thought looked better, sounded better.
Yeah.
How'd you end up with Bob Dylan? I mean, how'd you get from Zimmerman to Bob Dylan?
Just by some jumping around, you know.
Why did you feel you had to change your name?
Well, I think you have an identity of you, and it's yourself that maybe others around aren't aware of. So you got to start over again. Every way you can.
So you didn't see yourself as Robert Zimmerman?
And for some reason, I never did.
Even before you started performing?
No, even then. Some people get born, to the wrong names, wrong parents. I mean, that happens.
Did changing your name have anything to do with transforming your personality, changing your character?
No, I was already pretty set in my ways. I was a character that I already was. Wasn't neither here nor there to me. Nobody knew me anyway, so, whatever name, I would tell them.
That was right.
They'd have to believe me,
So tell me how you decided on Bob Dylan.
Well, I think it's pretty much, I don't know. I was talking to a guy in KISS one time, Gene Simmons. He used to have another name. I don't remember what it was, and he just said it popped into his head one day. And who else? I was talking to somebody else too. Well, other rappers, other rappers give themselves different names because that's who they feel they are, And they're not that person that everybody knows when they go to school. They're more into other things, and they need another name. Makes sense, And
you were into other things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the same, like, you call yourself what you want to call yourself. This is the land of the free.
I'd read somewhere that you wrote Blowing in the Wind in 10 minutes. Is that right?
Probably.
Just like that?
Yeah.
Where did it come from?
It came from, right out of that wellspring of creativity, I would think,
That wellspring of creativity has sustained Bob Dylan for more than 4 decades.
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man,
and produced 500 songs.
You got a lot of nerve.
And more than 40 albums.
How does it feel?
You ever look at music that you've written and look back at it and say, whoa, that surprised me?
I used to. I don't do that anymore. I don't know how I got to write those songs.
What do you mean you don't know how?
Well, those early songs were like almost magically written. Darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon, a handmade blade, a child's balloon.
Eclipses both the sun and moon. To understand, you knew too soon. There is no sense in trying.
This Dylan classic, It's All Right, Ma, was written in 1964.
Mouthpiece, the hollow horn, plays wasted words, proves to warn that he not busy being born, is busy dying.
Well, try to sit down and write something like that. There's a magic to that, and it's not Siegfried and Roy kind of magic. It's a different kind of a penetrating magic. And I did it at one time.
You don't think you can do it today? Does that disappoint you?
Well, you can't do something forever, and I did it once, and I can do other things now, but I can't do that.
Dylan has been writing music since he was a teenager in the remote town of Hibbing, Minnesota, the eldest of two sons of Abraham and Beatty Zimmerman. Did you have a good life, a good, happy childhood growing up?
I really didn't consider myself happy or unhappy. I always knew that there was something out there that I needed to get to, and it wasn't where I was at that particular moment.
It wasn't in Minnesota?
No.
Bob Dylan's journey shows that even a legend shaped by mystery, reinvention, and defiance can still wrestle with identity and purpose behind the curtain. Bob Dylan's journey, just like the others, shows that no matter how far you fall, redemption is still possible. And the truth is, stories like theirs aren't rare. Many people have gone through the same battles and come out stronger. If you're one of them, share your story in the comments. Someone who feels lost right now might find hope in what you've already overcome. Their stories remind us, behind fame's bright lights are people searching for truth, purpose, and redemption. Like and subscribe to spread the gospel of faith.